even if they are not yet equal, nevertheless, the monad holds seminally the principles which are within all numbers, including that which are within the dyad, for the monad is even and odd and even odd. It has all the properties of evenness and oddness. When you add it to an even number, it becomes odd. 2 plus 1 is 3. When you add it to an odd number, it becomes even. 5 plus 1 is 6. That's the theme he's presenting. Linear and plane and solid, cubical and spherical, and in the forms of the pyramids, from those with 4 angles to those with an indefinite number of angles, it's perfect and over-perfect and defective. It's proportionate and harmonic, prime and incomposite and secondary, diagonal and side, and it is the source of every relation. And it doesn't matter whether this relation is one of equality or inequality, as has been proved in the introduction. Moreover, it's demonstrably both point and angle with all forms of angle, and it's beginning, middle, and end of all things. It has all potentially within it. That was one of the main themes of the monad to the ancient world. It's due to the disposition of its divine nature, because every compound of plurality, or every subdivision, is given form by the monad. For the decad is 1, and the chiliad is 1. And again, 1/10 is 1, and 1,000th is 1, and so on for all the subdivisions ad infinitum. It all comes from the monad, is how they are expressing this. In each of these cases, there is the same monad in terms of form, and yet there are different monads in respect to quantity, because it produces itself out of itself, as well as producing them also, just as if it were the principle of the universe and the nature of things. And because it maintains everything, and it forbids whatever it is present in to change, then the monad alone of all the numbers resembles the providence which preserves everything, and is most particularly suited both to reflect the principle of God and to be likened to Him insofar as it is closest to Him. He further notes that it is in fact the form of forms, since it is creation, thanks to its creativity and intellect, thanks to its intelligence. This is adequately demonstrated in the mutual opposition of oblongs and squares. Nicomachus says that God coincides with the monad, since He is seminally everything which exists, just as the monad is in the case of number. The monad contains all of the numbers potentially. Everything exists potentially thanks to God. So that's how Nicomachus is tying the symbolism of the monad with God. He is not saying God is the monad, he's saying it is most like God. And there are encompassed in it potential things which, when actual, seem to be extremely opposed, to be capable, thanks to its ineffable nature, of becoming all classes of things. Now see, it contains all opposites. It itself is not an opposite, but it contains all the opposites. And because of that, existence is possible. Now, isn't this Lehi's discourse in the Book of Mormon? There must needs be an opposition in all things. Otherwise, there is no existence. So the ancients understood these principles. Nicomachus is simply putting the symbolism of the monad in relationship to God. He's not saying it is God. He's saying it has encompassed the beginning, the middle, and the end of all things. And you know, in the Doctrine and Covenants, this is one of the revelations of God to Joseph Smith, where he says it is the beginning, the middle, and the end, and his course is one eternal round. It's a very interesting theme here. And he says, because the monad is the beginning, the middle, and end of quantity, of size, and moreover of every quality. this is basically the theme of the monad, and then he has a whole lot more. Well, and then they say that the monad is... Now here they call the monad God. They say it's not only God, but also intellect and androgyne, because, of course, it contains the opposites. It's called intellect because of that aspect of God which is the most authoritative, both in the creation of the universe and in general in all skill and reason. So even if this aspect of God were not to manifest itself as a whole in particular matters, yet in respect of its activity, it is intellect, since in respect of its knowledge it is sameness and unvarying. Just so, the monad, which even if differentiated into the different kinds of things, has conceptually encompassed everything within itself, it is, as it were, a creative principle, and it resembles God in that respect, and does not alter from its own principle, and forbids anything else to alter, but is truly unchanging. So this is, and that's why they call it the artificer and the modeler. They call it Prometheus, because uniquely it does not outrun or depart from its own principle. That's one of the etymologies of the name of Prometheus to the ancients. It's called the seed. It's the seed from which all things grow. Now this is a very important image, because this seed image is also identified as the spark in early Christian literatures. And actually, Hugh Nibley has talked about this. Let me share something with you from Hugh Nibley in his article, The Treasures in the Heavens, that I think is extremely interesting in relation to this simple dot within a circle. It is fascinating. This is really interesting stuff, because you wouldn't think so much information and symbolism and theology and philosophy and understanding of just a simple dot with a circle around it would come out, did you? Were you ever taught this in school? I never was, and that's a crying shame. We're being cheated in our education. We pay thousands of dollars to be educated, and they don't teach us any of this. I had to learn all this stuff on my own through dozens and dozens of books. In his article, The Treasures in the Heavens, this is in Nibley on the Timely and the Timeless, he's discussing the idea of the, well, he mentions in the Pistis Sophia, the Ouroboros. That's the snake that bites its own tail. And notice it's a circle. It means feeding on its own tail in terms of the heat death, the idea of the heat death of the universe. It reports that fire and ice are the end of all things, since ultimate heat and ultimate cold both mean an end to substance. But that's not how the ending is. Because through the endless cycles, now notice this, the monad has to do with cycles. And in the ancient Christian and Jewish scheme of the creation, it was endless cycles of creation and dissolution, whereas only spirit contains and retains conscious identity. So that strictly speaking, only progeny is immortal, each mounting up from world to world, acquiring more treasure, progressing in more knowledge. He talks about the eternal process is not a static one. It requires endless expansion of the universe. Now get this, the monad is that dot with the circle. The first principle of Euclid's discussion is about the point, and it has to do, as Michael Schneider in his The Beginner's Guide to Creating the Universe, that I read to you while I was showing you all those wonderful pictures, he says the theme is expansion, onward expansion. This isn't a static process, it is endless expansion of the universe. Each dispensation is outgoing, tending to separation and emanation, in other words, fissure. It's an endless process in the uncontainable as it fills the boundless. This is the Egyptian paradox of the expanding circles of life which go on to fill the physical universe, and then they go on without end. This is the theme of the monad. We create our own universe symbolically when we whirl a circle, cut a circle with the compass, just like God did, the ultimate geometer. We too are geometers. And then, of course, This light, there's a light that is an ordering principle amid the chaos.